and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to leave a like or a comment, and don't forget to subscribe at the end of the video if you've enjoyed. So this video is all about the costs of owning a horse and all the little bits that you might need to know before buying your first horse. To start with, the horse is probably the biggest purchase to start out with. They could be free, you could get them at an auction, or you could spend loads of thousands of pounds and get yourself a fancy show horse. But they're the big purchase that you'll make at the beginning. This is not going to be something that you can look at and think, okay, if I can afford to buy this horse for £500 that's straight off a racetrack, I can afford to keep a horse, because the monthly costs do add up and they do become a lot of money. So you're going to need to think about where you're going to keep your horse and what sort of livery you're going to keep them on. Obviously, if you've got your own piece of land, this is going to save you tons, as you won't have to pay for livery because you can just look after your horse yourself. You won't have to pay field rent or anything like that. Evie, my horse, she's personally on a track livery. So this is a full livery on a horse track system. If you're interested in what Paddock Paradise is, I will link a video above of Lisa giving us a tour around the track that Evie's on. So you can start with a full livery. A full livery is where you pay someone else to look after your horse. So all you'll be paying is this set price every month. They'll pay for the feed, the hay. Sometimes it will also include bringing horses in, turning them out. Sometimes you can choose to do this yourself. It varies a lot on what you want. So at the full livery that I've got at the track system, I pay £300 a month. This cost varies on the size of the horse very slightly. So this includes being fed morning and evening. They get hay morning and evening, and it'll also include the track being cleared for them so that Evie's always got a nice clean track. This means that I don't have to rush around every morning and evening before and after work. Obviously, I do choose to go up and help out sometimes because I love being around horses, but this is something that you don't actually have to do. There's also liveries such as a half DIY, which could be, so a DIY is if you do everything for yourself. So you're paying for your stable, you're paying for your field, but you're not paying for someone else to look after your horse. You're going up there, you're purchasing the feed, you're purchasing the hay, the bedding, everything you might need there. But they might occasionally bring the horse in and out depending on what arrangements you've got with them. That can vary from being like £140 a month going upwards. It honestly completely varies depending on what you're getting out of the livery and also what the owner wants to charge you. So another big purchase is getting their feet done. On a track system, it's completely barefoot, so I personally have a podiatrist named Ashley. He comes out and he will basically trim the horse's feet and make sure they're level, make sure that they're healthy, and he looks more into the workings of the feet and make sure that they're working the best they can. That has to be done every 6 to 8 weeks, just the same as like if your horse is shod, and that costs me about £45. Evie's quite good and she can tend to last about 8 to 9 weeks before she needs to have it done. So it's not too expensive on her behalf, but it does add up. So next up is vet bills. This is probably one of the biggest purchases of owning a horse, just because you don't know when it's going to be needed, you don't know how much it's going to cost. You have the basic fees such as vaccines and small injuries that you might need a vet to come out and have a look, and they can cost you about from £75 upwards to like 100 and something. But then you can also have the surprise vet visits that can cost you the thousands. This does also include having your horse vetted. Evie personally had a 2-stage vetting, I think it was, that cost me £270 just for the vet to come out and give her a check over to make sure she's working fine, there's no underlying issues or anything like that. This is definitely something I would recommend before you buy your horse, just to make sure there's no hidden illnesses or hidden injuries that isn't shown up. Now this isn't necessarily saying that the owner that is selling the horse is a liar, because they might not know things. We was unaware that Evie was partially blind in her right eye, and most of the time it's things that you don't necessarily have to worry about. That Evie being blind doesn't bother me one bit. I'm happy with still buying her. She's an amazing horse and I wouldn't question it, but it's just things that are nice to know before buying a horse. I also have a Healthy Pet Club plan with Bell Equine. Bell Equine is a vet in England that specialises for like equines and everything, and I pay £10.99 a month, and this basically gives me a discount on treatment, as well as gives me 4 worm egg count packets a year. So every year they send out a new packet, and every couple of months, 4 times a year, I will sit there and do an egg count, send it off to the vets, and they tell me whether she needs worming. This also comes with 1 wormer a year, so they will send you out a wormer if your horse needs worming, and it's just a really good thing to have, as it takes off, I think it's 20% off of the purchase price of anything that you might need done with the vet. These are the things that are more one-off purchases. So the first few things I've been talking about, they cost a one-time purchase or a once-a-month purchase. Now, the things I'm about to say now, they are things that you'll need preferably before getting your horse, just so you've got it all ready and it's all ready for your horse. So you're going to need a feed bucket. The one I bought is, I think the brand's Gorilla. It looks like this, and it costs me about £8. Obviously I bought Evie's in orange because I'm obsessed with the colour. Now, obviously if you don't have a full livery, you'll also need to buy the food for the horse, and that can vary. I used to pay about £40 a month on getting Evie's food before she was on a full livery, so it can start to add up when you start adding the hay on top of that, and then you've got their feet being done, so it can be a very costly thing. So these are things you really need to think about before getting your horse. Can you actually afford it every month? Especially with surprise costs as well. So if your horse has hurt itself and needs a vet out, or if your horse is shod and has lost a shoe, you could have only just got your horse shod, paid the £45 to have their feet done, and then 2 days later they've ripped a shoe off, and then you have to call the farrier out again, and that's an additional cost that will need to be covered. And a horse isn't going to stand around and wait for you for your payday. These are all things that you would need to have. Even if you just have a spare bank account, these are all things you need to be aware of before getting a horse. So next is on to tack. Evie has a total contact saddle, and I got this luckily as a present from the owner of the company. He's a good friend. I will leave a link in the description of the store. Now, it's a total contact saddle, which means it gives a lot of comfort to the horse. I've got a video all about the tack I use. I will link it above. And this is the saddle, and this would typically cost £270. This also comes with the faux sheepskin pad that's underneath. You can buy it without the pad, or you can just buy the pad. It's all different costs. As I said, I'll leave the link in the description and you can check out the webpage yourself. The bridle that I've got for Evie is a Hackamore. This had to be built myself as I want Evie to be bitless. So I bought the standard bridle that I think I got off Amazon for £30. It was this one here, if I find the link. And all I did was take the noseband off, take the part that attaches to a bit off, and that's when I bought separately the Hackamore. Now this has Evie's one has a custom noseband that I got from a friend, and you just attach the Hackamore, and I think altogether it must have cost me about £60 to make the whole bridle. Obviously this does include reins coming with the bridle sometimes. Depending on what you're buying, you could buy a more expensive one. Obviously this is going to just keep your cost going higher and higher. I personally don't do a lot of hard exercises with Evie. that I would need a strong bridle. She's quite gentle in the face, so me buying a cheap bridle doesn't really faze me. I know that it's not going to get broken easy. Then you need to think of accessories. So does your horse need to wear brush boots? Evie does when she's lunging, as she can quite often trip over her feet. I got a pair of cheap brush boots from a friend again, and they cost, I think they would roughly in a shop cost about £13 to £20. This does vary on the brand. Obviously, like, you can look out for cheap ones. Just because they're more expensive doesn't mean they don't work. It's all kind of what you think will work for your horse. So Evie only wears them when she's lunging. So as long as they do the job while she's being lunged, I don't really care on whether they're expensive or not. So I've purchased rhythm beads, and they are amazing. They're the best things I could ever imagine getting for a horse. And they're basically built to distract the horse. So if you've got a spooky horse, they can be really good to distract you and the horse from scary surroundings. So this could include if it's a windy day and there's loads of leaves rustling, the horse will be listening to the beads on the necklace, and this will also help them concentrate. So Evie struggles with her balance, and I've actually found that on the days that she's wearing the rhythm beads, she has so much more balance when being ridden. If I've gone a day without them, we trip a lot more. They just really seem to work, and I paid, I think it was £25. I will leave a link in the description to the Facebook page of the lovely lady who makes them. They're custom to your horse, and they're just perfect, and I couldn't wish for something better for Evie. Also need a head collar, so these you can pick up off Amazon really cheap. I've got a rope head collar for Evie, and I think that costs about £20. Obviously you can get the really fancy leather ones that can cost you £60, so it's all preference of how much you are willing to spend on this. But I think the rough cheap range for them is probably about £15 to £20. You can get some really cheap ones, but obviously you want to be thinking about the horse's comfort as well. If they're going to be wearing it daily, then you don't want a really cheap fabric that's going to be rubbing on their faces, because it's just not going to be very nice. They're going to need to think of extras, such as Evie wears Renegade boots on her front feet. So she does get a bit sore on her front feet if the road that we're out on is a bit stony, or if we're taking her kind of hacking across fields. Sometimes there's a lot of gravel, so it hurts her feet. So I've personally bought her Renegade boots. They look like this, and I will leave a link in the description to the page that I bought them. They are amazing for barefoot horses. It just gives them that extra protection, but also allows their feet to flex still. So you're still getting the full movement, still getting the blood flow to their feet, but doing all this while protecting their feet from stony paths. I paid £92 per boot, so they are quite pricey. Obviously not all horses need this. This is very subject to your horse in particular. So you might have a horse that's shod, so you wouldn't need to get things like this, or you might have a barefoot horse but their hooves are pretty strong, so you also don't need to get this. It's just something to be aware of, that there could be extra costs for your specific horse. Finally, you also need to be thinking about your extras. So you've got to buy a hat. Now these can be fairly expensive, but they can also be quite cheap. This is something that you're going to want to put your money out on. So you can get yourself a cheap one, but would you really get yourself a cheap hat that might not protect you if you fall off? Obviously the more expensive the better, but you can buy kind of cheap expensive ones. So ones that are going to do the job. They're well-known brands, they have really good reviews, but they're not too expensive and they're not really going to break the bank. So the one I've got is I don't even know what brand it is, but it cost me about £30. It's not too expensive. It is fairly cheap for a good brand. I will try and find a picture and put it here. But you really want to invest on things like that. Riding boots, you can just get some cheap ones, get some cheap short boots and put a pair of chaps with it, or you can invest and get yourself some nice long boots. Obviously things like this are all personal preference. I know a lot of people that ride in a pair of wellies, but you are going to want to think about, is it safe and comfortable for you to be riding your horse every day or every other day or something like that in these shoes? Like, you're going to end up with blisters if you keep riding in wellies, so you're going to want to invest in something quite comfortable. Obviously you can really, depending on your budget, you can get some really nice ones. Like, I really want these boots, probably never going to be able to afford them, but I love them. And I've just got a cheap pair of Brogini ones. They cost me about £70 from a shop we've got in the UK called Go Outdoors. I've got a discount card, so I got a little bit off when I bought them from Go Outdoors, but I think they're about £60–70 for general boots. I'll get a picture and put them here. These are the ones I've got, and I do love them. They're really comfortable. They're probably not the best boots to buy as they are falling apart a bit, but I use these for doing the poo picking, taking the hay, just going for a walk. I use them for everything and probably don't take the best care of them. So it's all how you look after things. Next, you're going to want to think about coats, jodhpurs, gloves, all little things like that that you don't necessarily need, but you're probably going to want to invest in. You don't want to have your nice pair of jeans that you wear out with your friends and going to muck out your horse or going to ride your horse in them, because you're going to realise that a lot of your clothes are getting kind of ruined really quickly. So I have a jacket that is actually one of my old college jackets. I think it's by Horseware. It's a great jacket. I only ever wear it when I'm dealing with animals or I'm down at the yard with the horses. So it keeps particular clothes for what they're good for. So I'm not going to wear this out with my friends. Also, it doesn't matter if it starts raining and it gets all muddy down at the horses, because that's what it's made for. Just the same as my jodhpurs that I get. I just get cheap ones off Amazon, about £12. You can probably get a pair for £15. Literally, Amazon's the best place to get budget equestrian stuff. You can get boots, you can get jodhpurs, t-shirts, all sorts of things to protect your personal clothes. So this will actually really help, because they're easily replaceable and it won't bother you as much when you ruin them, because you are going to ruin things when you're with horses. Whether you get thrown off and get dumped in mud, or whether you rip it on a jump or rip it on a gate, you're going to want to have specific clothes for this. So I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions, leave them down in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I will be uploading a new video next week, and I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.